Hitler's war of aggression had led to an immense loss of life, with over 20 million dead in the Soviet Union alone. Tragically, the greater proportion of war casualties in Russia and most European nations had been civilian rather than military, and as the end of the war approached, the Allies began to discover the true horror of how so many people had died. During the advance on Berlin, American and Soviet commanders had discovered concentration camps filled with victims from all over Europe and Russia. In some camps, none of the inmates had been left alive, and only piles of bodies remained. In others, those who had survived the horrors of their internment were severely malnourished and in a desperate state. It was soon evident that not thousands, but millions of people had been systematically murdered by the Nazis, including Soviet civilians, soldiers, ethnic Poles, gypsies, and those who had opposed the Nazi regime. Above all, the Nazis had targeted the Jews, and around 2/3 of Europe's Jewish population had been killed in what would later be called the Holocaust. As the war crimes mounted, at Potsdam it was decided that an international military tribunal, on behalf of the American, British, Russian and French governments, should be formed. This body would conduct the most famous of all war crime trials at Nuremberg, a town renowned for hosting Nazi rallies and considered the ceremonial birthplace of the party. It was felt that this was a fitting place to mark the Nazi symbolic demise, and the trial to punish the major war criminals of the European Axis countries would at least see some justice served for the horrors of Hitler's unforgiving regime. Among the highest-ranking Nazi officials sentenced at Nuremberg was Hermann Göring, the commander of the Luftwaffe and second in command to Adolf Hitler. He was sentenced to death for being a leading political and military aggressor in the war and for his role in the extermination of the Jews. But Göring would thwart the Nuremberg judges when he committed suicide the night before his public hanging. Others to be sentenced at Nuremberg were Rudolf Hess, who'd been Hitler's deputy before he was captured in Britain in 1941. Hess was given a life sentence and would remain in Spandau prison, Berlin, for the remainder of his days, dying allegedly by suicide August 1987. Karl Dönitz, the initiator of the U-boat campaign and president of Nazi Germany in the days after Hitler's suicide, was given a 10-year sentence. And Wilhelm Keitel, the head of the Wehrmacht, was sentenced to death by hanging. Many of the doctors who had performed medical experiments in Nazi concentration camps were also sentenced at Nuremberg.